Welcome back. I have a prediction for you, and feel free to mark the tape if I am wrong. Wednesday, March 11th. Gavin Newsom is the Ron DeSantis of 2028, which is to say he won't last very long as the frontrunner in the next presidential election. This despite everyone fawning over him the last couple of months.
And I think he has certainly come out of the gate very attractive.
Hearing from people like Governor Newsom, people who care, people who are in their positions trying to do good things for the people they represent, it's nice. It keeps me sane.
I'm here today because he is a future president of the United States of America.
Are you just ridiculously good looking, as Vogue said?
Not unlike Gavin Newsom's rocket to fame, the New York Post named DeSantis the future after the 2022 primaries. Turned out he was debust. And he and his super PAC blew through over $100 million while he counted to less popular vote than, well, I think even the governor of South Carolina. Nothing kills a bad product faster than good advertising. With us now, Meghan Hays, former special assistant to President Biden, Laurie Watkins, Democratic strategist, former Obama reelection campaign policy director. Ladies, good to see you. Either of you want to disagree with me? Well, okay, we only have 6 minutes left on this segment.
Commercial?
Okay, there we go. So there is something to be said, though, right? If he busts the way DeSantis does, there's nobody left in the field. DeSantis had Trump as the guy waiting in the wings. Does that mean Kamala Harris comes back?
No, I will disagree with you. There are plenty of people in the field. There is J.B. Pritzker, there is Shapiro, there is Westmore. There are a ton of people in the Democratic field that have a chance to win. This is exactly what happens, though, and this is why you have primaries. I worked for a man who got into the race at the very end. We were ranked last in all the polling, and he ended up winning and becoming president of the United States. So just because you are polling well now does not mean you will make it to the election, a la Kamala Harris in 2020, versus Joe Biden, who was entered late, was dead last in most of the polls, and still won the election.
Yeah, COVID helped with that, but okay, go ahead.
And the flip side of that is, I worked for Barack Obama, right? Hillary Clinton was seen as the shoo-in. She was the darling of the campaign, and then
people forget that in 2008, how he was really.
Oh, we don't forget it, right?
I mean, I worked for Hillary Clinton. I did not forget it. I was in Iowa. I was in Iowa.
So there's this thing about Gavin Newsom, though, right? He is less popular than ICE. Source NBC News poll, February 27th through March 3rd. ICE is at 38%, Stephen Colbert 35%, Sanctuary Cities 33%, Democratic Party 30%, Gavin Newsom 27%, yet everybody is so in love with him. Why?
Yeah, I think that there's a place for Gavin Newsom right now, and he is doing what he needs to do. He is fighting back against Trump. He is pushing back against Trump. He is really driving a narrative that people are talking about. We're talking about him right now. So he is doing what he needs to be doing for the Democratic Party, and I think the base really enjoys that and really likes that. And also, it bothers Trump. It gets under his skin. So he's not ineffective in what he's doing. That doesn't mean he will be the nominee for president.
Okay, so this is Trump's true social about Gavin Newsom. You're right, he is under his skin. Gavin Newsom interview weeks ago was perhaps the most self-destructive interview I have ever seen. He said in a speech he was dumb, had low boards, can't read, has dyslexia, and has a mental disorder, a cognitive mess. He is no longer a viable presidential candidate. The first time Meghan and Laurie have ever agreed with Donald Trump.
Okay. But I will say, your network included. The last time I was on this program, we were talking about Newsom, and what did I say to you? Do you remember? I said, you all are giving him too much airwaves. You're giving him too much room to be this front runner. Why aren't you having these other candidates, Andy Beshear, Pritzker? Why are you having them on?
Andy Beshear won't come on, but that's okay.
Well, that's unfortunate. I think he should absolutely speak to your audience, because we're trying to build,
we're the audience in the middle that actually elects people.
We're trying to bring more people under the tent, and that's those polling numbers that you just saw there. What, 30% Democratic favorability? The issue is here. He is the only one that is out there, outspoken, who is criticizing the president and criticizing the Republican Party, right?
Yeah.
And you have Hakeem Jeffries, who, God love him, but he has a job to do over here on Capitol Hill. He's not running for president. I think that Newsom is trying to build a national profile for himself, and y'all are giving him ample runway
good for the Democratic Party? Is Newsom's national profile good for the Democratic Party? Here's why. This was an ad that was taken out in the New York Post by the California Business and Industrial Alliance. His record is worse than the Jets. For non-sports fans, that's pretty bad. We'll put it up on the screen. There's Gavin Newsom in the Jets uniform. The issue, though, is this, that you mentioned J.B. Pritzker. There he is. He's #1 in high taxes and homelessness. The list goes on. J.B. Pritzker and Gavin Newsom both run states that have supermajority Democratic control. They are Democratic policy incubators, and they are both disasters that everybody wants to leave from. How is that message, hey, let's turn either America into Illinois or into California? How is elevating that message helpful?
Well, I think that Donald Trump, he knows that they are a threat, because if not, why would he send the National Guard into these cities to try to cause all of this chaos to make them look bad? Come on now.
You think people are moving out of California in droves or out of Illinois in droves because the National Guard showed up?
I used to live in California. Gavin Newsom was my governor, and I moved because it was way too darn expensive as a small business owner to remain there. I also lived in Florida, and Governor DeSantis was my governor. So I've experienced both of them, and I wouldn't say that either were my favorite.
Okay, but fair point, though. You go to America, they are voting with their feet. There's a lot more people moving to Florida and Texas, okay, than there are moving to Illinois or California.
Well, and that's why we have primaries. But again, we're still talking about him even before the midterm. So clearly, he's getting under someone's skin, and he's doing the job of building the base and energizing people, because so that is very effective.
Here is President Trump on Gavin Newsom.
And they want to get back in office for the midterms, and you can't let them. Did you see that they went to Munich, right? You saw that, right? You saw Gavin Newsom. He admitted that Gavin Newsom. So I think his career is over, okay?
Is his career over? No.
No, absolutely not. He's doing exactly what he needs to do. He's talking about him literally today, and he's not even running for anything. He's the governor of a state that happens to be doing things for his state, which he was doing.
What does it say, though, that the most known man in the Democratic Party, the person that everyone is talking about, is a straight, white, male Christian? Here's Mark Halpern on that.
A lot of Democrats would be offended if you said about their party they're not going to nominate anything but a straight white man, but a Christian straight white man. But I really do think there's a lot of sentiment in the party, including amongst women of color, to say we got to go safe, and safe is heterosexual white man who's a Christian. And on my list of 8, there's nearly no one except for the governor of California who is those things.
Oh.
So 2028 is going to be about who captures the mood of the country. And with all due respect, Leland, we are way far out from that scenario. And we all know this war, every single day, something different happens with this president and with Congress and how they act. Look at all of these races that are turning Democrats, flipping into Democratic seats. I mean, look at the runoff now in Georgia. I mean, numbers that no one ever thought of, where people were winning by +30. The tides are turning. People are frustrated. They're really ticked off. I've heard on all the shows.
Right, but there's a difference between being ticked off and saying we want to make America like California and Illinois. How do you solve for that?
But I don't think that's what you're saying if you are wanting to elect Gavin Newsom. And we
really?
2026.
Isn't that why you would elect him? Because he did a good job?
No, I think that he's going to, if that's what he's going to do, he's going to make promises to lower the economy, and that is what all people care about, is affordability.
Taxes or something. Okay.
Sorry.
Lower prices.
Lower prices.
There we go.
We'll get there.
About affordability and what matters to people right now.
But California isn't affordable. You just said it. How do you run on that?
But he's not. It's 2026.
I mean, he understands that his state is expensive, but he also has the 4th largest economy in the entire globe.
Last I checked, he can't run for governor. So, I mean, there's somebody else running. He's actually not running for anything right now. So we are making him. You are making him.
You are giving him relevance.
Yeah, which is.
Got to have something to talk about. And you know what? Even though you agreed with me, there we go. We made it to the end of the segment.
Happy to be here.
Meghan, Laurie, thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.